Good morning and welcome to Together in God, a media ministry of Grace and St. John's Lutheran Churches. We are affiliated with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We are happy to share with you God's message of love and hope. Today's service is being brought to you from St. John's Lutheran Church. The church is located at 1804 Highland Avenue in Eau Claire. Please join us now in worship.
The reading is from Psalm 103. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and do not forget all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies you with good as long as you live, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God.
I invite children to come forward now. You know, today we have a special group in church. We have the St. John's Theater. They're here today to perform for us. You know who they are? They're you. Okay. I need one person to be a leper. Who wants to be a leper? Okay, you get to be a leper. Okay. Leper's very sick. Has lots of sores, okay? And I need someone to be Jesus. Gotcha. Okay, you're Jesus. Now, I also need a crowd. You're going to be the crowd? Okay. We need more crowd. Acolytes? I need more of a crowd, okay? Here we go. Now, we're going to tell a story that I'm going to read in the gospel today, but we're going to act it out. So here's how we're going to do it. Stand up. Let's get on the stage here. Okay. There we go, right on the stage. Now, Jesus, you're over here minding your own business. So stand there and mind your own business. Excellent. Excellent. Now, leper. The leper, you're very sick. You come to Jesus. Tap him on the shoulder and get down on your knees and say, please, will you heal me? Okay, and Jesus says, yes, I think I will. Okay, good. So, heal her. And bang, she's well. Okay, now, Jesus says to her, wait, leper. He's got something to tell you. Tell her that you don't want her to tell anybody. Okay? And you say, all right. Okay. Now you say, no, I'm serious. I really don't want you to tell anybody. Okay. So, now you go away, and you go to the crowd here, and you tell everyone that Jesus healed you. And now, the crowd is all interested. Wherever Jesus goes, the crowd follows. Crowd, Jesus, walk up here to the mountain. And the crowd follows. Come on, crowd. And the leper too. All you, follow. Real close. Okay. No, you can't get away from him. Okay. You try going to the lake. This is as close as we got to a lake here, okay? You're by the lake, and they follow you. Now you go down here to the valley, and the crowd's following you. Follow crowd real closely. And you even go to your own house. Let's go to your house here, okay? Open the door. Get in the house. And they follow you into the house. Isn't this crazy? You know, Jesus knew that was going to happen when he healed the leper. But he felt bad for the leper. And so he said, I know my life is going to be in chaos. My life is going to be so upset if I heal this person, because now everyone's going to follow me around wherever I go. But he said, but you know what? I still want to heal. And so Jesus healed the leper, even though he knew what was going to happen and his life was going to be kind of difficult. So, it's kind of a good lesson for us. We're supposed to have love, show love to people. Even if we think there might be some problems that come, still, we show love. That's what Jesus did, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in my sermon. A little round of applause for our theater troupe. Good work today. You can go back. The Gospel according to Mark, the first chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Just then, there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went through Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. A leper came to him, begging him, and kneeling, he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me well." And moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I do choose. Be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country, and people came to him from every quarter. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. What I find most interesting about this collection of stories from the beginning of Mark is the encounter with the leper, particularly what Jesus said to the leper after he had healed him. There's a post-communion song that we sometimes have used in our liturgy that goes, "Thank the Lord and sing his praise. Tell everyone what he has done. Let everyone who seeks the Lord rejoice and proudly bear his name." Based on what Jesus commanded in these verses, it seems as though we ought to change the words to, "Thank the Lord, but keep it to yourself. Say nothing about it to anyone. Let everyone who seeks the Lord rejoice and remember that mum's the word." Yeah, that sounds ridiculous, and it's diametrically opposed to what the church is about and what we see our mission being as a church. Yet, Jesus' command to say nothing to anyone is not an outlier. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus repeatedly instructed people not to tell others about the healing Jesus had done. It wasn't a case of false modesty. Jesus did not simply say, "Really, you don't need to make a big deal of this." He did not say, "I'd feel a lot more comfortable if you just kept what happened here on the down low." Mark says that Jesus warned the leper not to say anything. A warning is given to prevent something bad from happening. Jesus was not expressing a personal preference that his deeds go unheralded. He was saying there will be consequences if you go around spreading news of them. He even went beyond warning. He sternly warned them. A stern warning goes beyond just an implied threat that if you do not heed the warning, something bad will happen. Jesus is very close to saying, you are to say nothing to anyone about this or else. What's even more fascinating to me is that this series of stories opens with people being amazed at Jesus' power and authority. They kept asking one another, what is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands the unclean spirits and they obey him. Yet, if Jesus exudes such irresistible authority, isn't it interesting that a miserable leper who is deeply in Jesus' debt so blatantly and without any hesitation whatsoever defies what Jesus sternly ordered him to do? Leads to all kinds of intriguing questions. How do we make sense of this insistence on secrecy when it comes to what Jesus has done, especially given the context of evangelism? Why did Jesus tell people to keep quiet? Furthermore, how did he get from tell no one to the Great Commission that says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations? And Jesus' words in Acts, you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and to the ends of the earth. Finally, why couldn't Jesus, with all his power and authority, get anyone to pay the slightest attention to what he was sternly commanding them about not telling anyone? The only chance we have of unraveling this puzzle is to try to figure out why Jesus did not want people talking about his powers. Let's follow the progression of the story. Jesus is teaching in the synagogue, telling the good news from God. He appears to be doing well at it, getting his message across, when this man comes in with unclean spirits and he hijacks the session, making extraordinary claims about Jesus. That's not what Jesus planned. He has important things to say. He knows just how he's going to say them in order to awaken people to the reign of God that is coming into the world. This guy with the unclean spirit disrupts the life-giving message by focusing on some unexplainable otherworldly powers Jesus has access to. Jesus does not want this. He wants to keep the focus on the life-giving message. He does what he can to shut down the interruption quickly. But what happens when he quiets the unclean spirit? At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. Jesus just can't win. As evidenced so clearly in our politics and in our media coverage today, people have a tendency to focus on the sensational rather than on the substance of a message. Now, if Jesus were the P.T. Barnum type, he could use that to his advantage. These unsolicited testimonials are so powerful, they can make him the most powerful person in the land. Masses of people will follow him anywhere. Jesus could use that popularity to gain power and thereby advance his agenda. He could probably take over the whole world and usher in that long-awaited era of peace and goodwill. But Jesus didn't come into the world to amass power. Quite the opposite. Jesus came to show that God's creation operates not on the basis of who's most powerful, but on the basis of love. It's one of the most persistent mistakes of humanity to think that the goals of peace and goodwill can be achieved through power. It is impossible. The only thing that will achieve them is love. Jesus' concern that people are going to hijack his mission and try to make it into a power thing is proven valid in John. After the feeding of the 5,000, an event that Jesus never planned or wanted, the people get swept up in a political uprising to sweep Jesus into power over their corrupt local leaders and despised Roman occupiers. According to John, when Jesus realized they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew to the mountain by himself. A similar thing happened when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. Those shouts of Hosanna and praise were not a ringing endorsement of Jesus' promise of new life and rebirth. They were shouts of expectation that Jesus was here to grab the throne of power, kick out the Romans, and lead Israel to a golden era of political power and prosperity. When Jesus refused to accept the reins of power, the disillusioned masses turned on him and quickly demanded his crucifixion. There's also a practical reason why Jesus is concerned that people will focus too much on his healing skills. It's going to make it all but impossible for him to do his work. He will be mobbed by people in search of healing and miracle cures. He's going to be viewed as a one-man free clinic, open 24/7, first come, first served. The demands on his time and energy will become impossible. Jesus will be too exhausted to have a chance of proclaiming the good news. That's what will happen if word spreads that Jesus can heal people like this. Unfortunately, there seems to be little Jesus can do to stop it. When they leave the synagogue and head over to Simon Peter's house for a break, they find Peter's mother-in-law in bed, ill. What does Jesus do? He could ignore her and say, look, I've got to restrict the use of this healing ability or else I'm going to have trouble proclaiming what I need to proclaim. But he didn't. He healed her because Jesus is about compassion. When confronted with a need, his compassion took over. He acted in love without regard to the long-term consequences. Sure enough, word spread immediately about Jesus casting out a demon in the synagogue and healing Peter's mother-in-law. And what happened next? Exactly what Jesus feared. That evening at sunset, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered at his door. Another day hijacked. Yet, acting in compassion, Jesus set aside his plans and healed them. Until finally, early in the morning while it was dark, he managed to slip away to a deserted place to pray. Of course, the disciples came looking for him, and when they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." Well, great. Jesus said, "Let's get out of here and go on to the neighboring towns so that I can proclaim the message there. For that's what I came to do." And he went through Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues, until the leper showed up. This guy was not just sick. He had the most dreaded disease of that time. Lepers were outcasts of society. They were expressly forbidden from any contact with any healthy person in the community. The leper ignores that. He breaks the law, kneels before Jesus and says to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Well, yeah, that was true. The question was, should Jesus choose to do it? First of all, should he reward the guy for breaking the law? Secondly, the healing of a leper is going to be front page news. Word gets out about this, Jesus' life is going to be a living nightmare. Jesus knows that, but he can't help himself. As he always does when confronted by need, Jesus acts in love. You can well imagine what will happen to his life and to his proclamation of the good news if he heals this person. But it doesn't matter. Jesus does what compassion demands. "Yes, I do choose," he says. "Be made clean." Leprosy is cured. And all Jesus can do at this point is try to contain the problems this will cause for him. He looks the guy right in the eye and says, "Listen to me. You are to tell nobody about this. I mean, nobody. Follow the rules. Go show yourself to the priests so they can certify that you're free of disease and you can be back among society. But don't tell them anything about how you happen to be free of leprosy. I'm serious about this. What happened here is between you and me. I had better not hear people talking about it. If I do, I'm going to know it was you. And believe me, I'm not going to be happy about it." You understand? Well, the leper, still in a daze, nods in confusion, and Jesus dismisses him. We can imagine he may have made a few half-hearted attempts to keep his promise. But he's so bursting with joy and thanksgiving, and people are demanding to know how he got rid of the disease, that it's a hopeless task. He can't keep it in any longer. He just has to tell what happened. Pretty soon he's trumpeting it all over town. Jesus is amazing. He healed me. He healed my leprosy. And the result, according to Mark, Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country. Just as Jesus expected, this healing has put a damper on his ability to go about proclaiming good news. And even when he stays out in the remote areas, people stream from all over for healing. And it just gets worse. Jesus tries to slip back to his home in Capernaum for a little rest. Word gets out. The house is mobbed. Those who cannot get close to him resort to tearing apart his roof and dropping in from above. Jesus goes to the seashore. The mobs follow. At one point, Jesus has to tell his disciples to get a boat ready for him because of the crowd so they would not crush him. Jesus goes off to the mountains to get away. He crosses back and forth across the Sea of Galilee, trying to get a little breathing space. They go away in a boat to a deserted place to rest because, as Mark says, they had no leisure even to eat. Well, even that doesn't work. Crowds follow him into the deserted hills, not even bothering to pack food, and again, Jesus has compassion on these hungry people and feeds them, knowing this will only make the situation worse. Jesus is driven by compassion. It doesn't always make things easy. That seems to be why he tried to limit the damage by urging and even sternly warning people not to talk about the miraculous part of what he's doing. I don't imagine Jesus really expected the leper or the others who were healed to ignore his directive to keep quiet and not tell anyone. That's asking a lot. It's just that this was putting him in a difficult spot, and he had to try something, even if it was ultimately futile. I wonder if what Jesus hoped would happen in his continually telling people not to talk about his miracles was that eventually, maybe 2,000 years later, we would get the idea that the importance of the good news that Jesus brought was not the sensational, but it was the substance. That is why, frankly, I do not spend a lot of time talking about Jesus' miracles. Jesus asked us not to talk about them because he doesn't want us to get sidetracked onto a dead-end path. A lot of religious folks dwell on Jesus' spectacular powers and proclaim that these powers are the reason we should believe in Jesus. In other words, follow the hype. Jump on the bandwagon of the most powerful person who ever lived and enjoy the triumph. But the substance of Jesus' ministry was compassion. Not power, not splash, not spectacle. Compassion is what he wanted people to focus on. It's what he wants us to focus on. So while I don't dwell on Jesus' power, I do like to talk a lot about Jesus and his love. Demonstrating love may cause short-term problems and headaches for all of us, as it did for Jesus. But in the long run, love is the only thing that is going to bring about the reign of God into the world. Amen.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on His goodness, I lose my doubt and fear. Though by the path He leadeth, though one step I may see, His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know.
Thank you for being a part of Together in God, brought to you today by St. John's Lutheran Church. Your prayers and financial support are always deeply appreciated, and the hand of fellowship and ministry is extended to you. St. John's holds services on Sunday mornings at 8:15 and 10:45 a.m. Please tune in again next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Until we meet again, may God bless you.